Factory farming has become mainstream in the 21st century and has inadvertently caused damage to modern society. Before we dive in, let me introduce what factory farming really is. A factory farm is a large-scale industrial operation that houses thousands of animals raised for food, such as chickens, turkeys, cows, and pigs, and treats them with hormones and antibiotics to prevent disease and maximize their growth and food output. Small farms have been replaced by factory farms that pollute nearby air and water, undermine rural economies, and reduce the quality of life for neighbors. Animals are fed corn, wheat, and soy that are grown through intensive industrial farming that use large amounts of pesticides, which can remain in their bodies, and are passed on to the people who eat them, creating serious health hazards in human consumers. Factory farms are notorious for animal injustice. For example, the beaks of chickens, turkeys, and ducks are often removed in factory farms to reduce the excessive feather pecking and cannibalism seen among stressed, overcrowded birds. Unfortunately, 2 in 3 farm animals in the world are now factory farmed, which equates to about 70 billion farm animals a year. Confining so many animals in one place produces much more waste than surrounding land can handle. As a result, factory farms are associated with various environmental hazards, such as water, land, and air pollution. For example, hog, chicken, and cattle waste has polluted 35,000 miles of rivers in 22 states and contaminated groundwater in 17 states. The pollution from animal waste causes respiratory problems, skin infections, nausea, depression, and even death for people who live near factory farms. Not only is factory farming abusive to animals, but in the end, humans will be the biggest losers.
One of the biggest environmental impacts of industrial farming are the large greenhouse gas emissions that accompany it. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, greenhouse gases trap infrared radiation from leaving the Earth's surface and contribute to the overall warming of the planet. The most prevalent of these gases are carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and ammonia. Industrial farming relies heavily on fossil fuels for heating, cooling, and ventilating the factories, as well as for transportation of livestock. The consumption of fossil fuels emits large sums of carbon dioxide into the environment, perpetuating the warming of the climate. Industrial farming also accounts for 40% of global methane emissions, 64% of ammonia emissions, and 68% of nitrous oxide emissions, which have the capability to stay in the atmosphere for 150 years and 296 times the warming potential when compared to carbon dioxide. A study done by Michigan State University found that cows produce 79 to 186 pounds of methane, 59 to 175 pounds of ammonia, and 9 to 12 pounds of nitrous oxide per year per cow. This means that in a large factory farm with approximately 1,000 cattle, 132,000 pounds of methane, 117,000 pounds of ammonia, and 10,000 pounds of nitrous oxide are produced yearly. In total, the livestock sector accounts for 18% of all greenhouse gas emissions globally.
Farm animals are a major cause of deforestation around the world. Deforestation is the permanent destruction of forests in order to make land available for other uses. Deforestation could be detrimental to our planet. It contributes to loss of biodiversity. It creates more loose soil, which increases the chance of landslides. It takes away trees that absorb excess groundwater, increasing the chance of floods. It cuts down plants that could filter greenhouse gases. Over 260 million acres of forest have been cleared to make room for crop fields in just the United States. And this is not a practice that occurs only in the U.S. Land clearing in Brazil to grow animal feed is responsible for the destruction of almost 3 million acres of rainforest. A lot of the food that is grown isn't even for human consumption. About 40% of all grain crops grown are used to feed livestock. To put this in perspective, the average cow eats 35 pounds of grain mix per day. The average person eats about 4 pounds of food per day. The amount of corn that one cow eats per day is equal in weight to the amount of food that could feed 8.75 people per day. We could grow enough food to feed another 4 billion people if the land used for growing livestock feed was used to grow crops for human consumption.
Industrial factory farming is also a major contributor to water pollution. In 2000, the National Water Quality Inventory conducted by the EPA found agricultural activity to be a source of water pollution for 48% of stream and river water and 41% of lake water. The main source of this pollution is runoff of synthetic fertilizers from growing feed for animals and animal waste, which can poison drinking water and the wildlife. In industrial farming, manure is held in large lagoons, which can leak, overflow, or rupture during large storm events. This, as well as runoff from fields, can cause nearby water systems to become contaminated with phosphorus and nitrogen, causing an algal bloom. Algal blooms use up the oxygen within a body of water, creating dead zones and killing off wildlife. Waste from factory farming can also leach into groundwater supplies, spreading disease-causing pathogens into waterways and contaminating drinking water. Besides health and wildlife effects, the amount of water used in these operations is staggering. Nearly half of the fresh water used in the United States is used for farming and agricultural purposes. Some farms using water to flush out animal pens daily use an estimated 150 gallons of water per day per animal, contributing to the fact that factory farming practices are not sustainable for human or environmental health.
Factory farming can also be directly dangerous to people. Those living near these farms experience respiratory issues, skin problems, and nausea from allergens and toxic gases from the farms. The odors produced from livestock can also cause people higher levels of tension, depression, and anger. Those who work in these farms get the worst of these symptoms. There are also health risks for consumers of meat. Have you ever heard, "You are what you eat"? Industrialized farm animals are often pumped with antibiotics to decrease disease among animals and increase growth. As a result, the human diet is being filled with antibiotic-resistant pathogens, drug residues like hormones and growth promoters, and bad fats, and we don't even realize it. Industrialized farming is a large-scale safety hazard for people. It is causing environmental issues that are affecting people's safety and health. With joint efforts from people around the world, factory farming could become a greener process. What are you going to do to help?